Hey there friends, it's so great to have you back on my channel, and to all the new faces, a very warm welcome. In today's video I'm going to take you on a journey through one of my latest graphite works, this one. I'll be talking about my standard approach to drawing portraits and sharing all the tips and tricks that helped me along the way. Now I know this is going to be a longer video, but trust me, it'll be worth it. So grab a pencil and some paper and let's get started. And here's the best part, I want you to show me your progress too. Share your artwork with me on social media and I'll be happy to feature it on my page. And now let's get started. If you're interested, I'd be happy to share the materials I used in this graphite work. These materials are my go-to list for all my graphite work, and I've linked them in the video's description. However, you don't necessarily need these specific materials to get started. You can use whatever materials you have available at the moment, but if you plan to work on future projects, I would highly recommend giving these materials a try. If you know me, you know I'm a huge fan of Strathmore 400 series smooth surface paper. This paper has a slight yellowish tint that helps balance out the gold graphite, giving your work a more appealing look. I use it all the time, particularly for my graphite work. The pad I use is 11 by 14 inches, 27.9 by 35.6 centimeters. As for the pencils, I have a very standard set that I use in every single graphite drawing, which is the Faber-Castell Castell 9000 in hardness 2B, 4B, 6B, and 8B. If you don't have an extended range of hardness, you can use one medium soft pencil, let's say B or 2B. That'll work just fine. The brand of the pencils doesn't really matter, but each brand might have slightly different markings for their hardness, so you can learn it by testing it. Before I start my drawing work, I like to sharpen all the pencils that I'm going to use. To achieve the best result, I prefer using a knife to sharpen my pencils in the old school way. I like using pencils with a long and sharp point. Throughout the drawing process, I keep sharpening them regularly to maintain the fine point of the pencils. I came across a beautiful reference on my go-to website for high quality and royalty-free images, pixels.com. You can also access this reference through the link I provided for you in the description of this video. There are plenty of references available on the website to use for your own projects. Feel free to try it out. When creating a graphite artwork, it can be helpful to convert a colorful picture into black and white by reducing the saturation. This allows us to focus on the values and tones of the image without being distracted by the colors. And now let's dive in and get started. When I begin my drawings, I usually use a 2B pencil, which is the least soft pencil in my graphite collection. I used to believe that the pencil used to start a drawing should be the hardest one to avoid smudging the paper with dark marks that cannot be erased and to prevent damage to the paper while trying to erase incorrect lines. However, I've learned that starting with a harder pencil can cause the paper to be covered with graphite mixed with a clay component that fills the paper surface with a layer that cannot take more graphite. This can cause overshading and damage the paper, and you won't be able to create the darkest values properly. I also want to add that since I choose a pretty soft pencil 2B for the beginning, I use it lightly without applying hard pressure, so it's easier to fix errors with an eraser. If you're a beginner or not confident in the beginning when you need to construct a face, for example, or whatever your subject is, I recommend using HB or B pencil, also with light pressure. When it comes to approach to my drawing, I must mention that it is not entirely based on academic principles. Rather, it is a blend of academic elements of construction and a sight and measuring method with an intuitive approach. While I take into account the fundamental principles of drawing, I also trust my visual perception and intuition to guide me through the creative process. In my work, I always try non-traditional composition unless it's a custom-made traditional portrait. I love playing with negative spaces, leaving large empty areas to kind of emphasize the idea of unconventionality, if you will. For this piece, I kept the initial composition as it spoke to me and placed emphasis on the right side. I begin drawing the head by first determining its place and size. Although it's recommended to start with the general form of the head, for me it's easier to begin at the top and gradually add in general details while working my way towards the bottom. My first priority is to ensure that the composition is correct. The size of the head is not too big or not too small. There is enough space to partially include the body of the model in my work. I also consider how much will be dedicated to negative space, area around the head and above the shoulders. Now, when I'm exploring the face, I start by looking at a few key points, such as the vertical central line and its angle, and the eye line and its angle. These measurements help me determine the head angle, which is important in aligning all the other facial features. Additionally, I like to compare the mass of the face to the mass of the hair to find out proportions better. For instance, the open part of the face has a round shape that is slightly pointy at the bottom, while the hair should take up about 1/3 of the overall head length. You see here that I continue making light marks to form a silhouette of the head. I add details that help me find the right lines and distances. Once I put one mark on paper, it becomes a measurement point. Therefore, it is important to me to understand what I am doing, and the marks I make are never random. I try to make them as precise as possible. It is important to note that these initial lines may not be 100% accurate, but it is best to keep going and determine the head fiercely. Now you see me trying to group the position of the eyes and their size, which is determined by this approximate measurement. One width of the eye is equal to 1/5 of the width of the face at the level of the eye. This measurement is true to the front face and is generic. Now we should adapt this principle to our face. Because our face is not perfectly in the front position, it's slightly turned to the side, which means we should adjust the measurement. The size on the right side will be shorter and on the left side wider. I've been so meticulous in measuring features and distances, making all the calculations in my head, slowly put one stroke after another. This is how I usually work due to my drawing style and probably personality. I prefer to make fewer but more precise marks at the beginning, but you guys don't have to follow my approach exactly. Instead, you can take certain aspects and adapt them to your own practice based on what works best for you. Make as many marks as you wish. The final result should not be a photocopy of a reference, but an authentic drawing. And that is fine if you have a cloud of abandoned marks crossing around the drawing. So please don't think about mistakes and imperfections while drawing, and again, try to enjoy the process. Here we see I've moved on the body part, making marks determining the neck and shoulders and working on the clothing details. The first lines I draw are mostly straight and kind of broken, like a series of tangents. The initial sketch appears as a collection of floating lines that will eventually find their proper place and settle into the drawing. Here I'm drawing a central line there so we can see the symmetry of the face better. For some reason, when I was drawing, I saw that vertical line slightly tilted, but as I look at it right now, recording my voice over the video, the vertical line seems quite straight. Well, it was a mistake, I couldn't figure it out right away, but don't worry, I'll fix it further in the process. Here I'm checking the position of the eyes and the width of the nose. The edges of the nostrils should be lined up with the inner corners of the eyes or close to that measurement. My reference is right in front of me. I can attach my pencil to the iPad vertically to see where those points are on the vertical line. I've noticed that the eye line is inclined a little bit too much, so I'm trying to double check and fix it. This time I'm attaching the pencil horizontally to see if there is any angle at all. I want to check if the left eye is lower than the right one, and if so, what angle it is. I'm not sure why initially I saw it as more inclined, because right now it's obvious that it's very close to straight horizontal line. By good, I figured something was off and I had to fix it. The fixing wasn't quick, so after a bit of back and forth, there'll be a better result later. I sped up the process a bit so we can move forward quicker. Now that I have added some details to the eyes, which I probably shouldn't have done so early on, it's time to establish the lips. First, I outline the upper and lower borders of the lips, followed by the middle lip line, which is usually located slightly higher than halfway between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin. Here I'm adding more details, defining the nostrils and paying close attention to adding more intricate details, those that indicate shadows caused by specifics of anatomical structure. I indicate nuances that eventually help me in defining values, cast shadows, the spots where light meets midtones, reflections, and details that determine the character of our model. Alright guys, I noticed that the right eye was placed a little too close to the center. At this stage, it seems like I was almost done constructing the face, but I knew I needed to fix this mistake quickly, so I gently erased the wrong marks, but not completely. I made sure to leave enough of the previous marks visible so I knew exactly how much I was moving the eye and where to place the new marks. I made a few more corrections, specifically widening the face in the left cheekbone and on the side of the jaw. Now we're finally ready to start shading. I began shading with a soft pencil 4B, creating light and almost even but without precision shading. Don't worry, we'll smooth out any uneven areas later by blending. The first layer of shading is intended to provide a foundation to build upon. As I continue shading, I will accentuate the marks that I want to retain, such as the details that define the facial features. I keep layering the shading until I've covered enough to begin blending. My favorite part is blending the graphite to make it look smooth. To do this, I use a soft napkin folded 4 times into a small square and gently rub it over the graphite, being careful not to damage the paper. I blend the whole graphite level, including the highlights and light areas, to create a cohesive look. We are now starting the second layer, and we will continue with many more layers in order to define values. Shading is a time-consuming process, so I will speed up the video to keep you from getting bored and falling asleep. I just want to give you some advice on how to achieve the best results. Use soft pencils for shading. The darker values, the softer the pencils you will need. It is difficult to achieve the same level of contrast as in a photo, and it is not always necessary. You can decide on the level of contrast you want to achieve in your work. Depending on what is your softer graphite pencil, you can get your level of contrast. In this work, I'm using a pencil 8B, which will determine the darkest value in my drawing. The hair, eyebrows, and iris of our model should have the darkest values. Of course, 8B cannot provide black, so the darkest values in this work will be dark gray, meaning the contrast in the work will be somewhat low. You can make even lower contrast in your work if your artistic goal matches that idea. To achieve the best results, you will need to choose pencils that stay close on the value scale. It is worth experimenting and practicing to better understand values. Now watch the video to the next step of improving our drawing, and I'll meet you there. Thank guys for sticking around till the end of the video. A few words about final touches. Here I am working on the clothing details. As you can see, I'm using lines to emphasize the folds and creases rather than doing a lot of shading. That's due to my decision to create this kind of design. I really like the effect of incomplete drawing, a drawing that is sort of being left in the construction stage with all those constructive lines. I usually use this technique for clothing details or other secondary object and elements. You may have noticed a similar approach in the hair, but with more shading. The hair doesn't look completely realistic, but that's intentional. To be honest, if the drawing was a larger scale, I would add more line work to the whole thing. However, since it's smaller, I'll keep it as is. I choose this style because I want to incorporate an element of abstraction and step away from complete realism. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you are inspired to try this drawing yourself. If you have any questions about this practice or other drawing related concerns, please drop them in the comment section. I will respond to every single comment you post, and it will also help me create more helpful videos. That's all for now. See you all in the next video. Thank you.